There's a proud mama in the house. As the CEO of Herring Seminars and Consulting and co-founder of FlexCom, Dr. Christine is redefining how we communicate by turning everyday conversations into bold, inclusive breakthroughs. A sought-after coach, trainer, and author of the Mind Jukebox series, Dr. Christine helps people and organizations move from talking about change to leading it with heart, clarity, and purpose. I want to just say a couple of things about this woman who's about to stand before you. I met her some years ago, I believe, and I forget where Dr. Herring honestly was setting, but I do remember when I met her, I remember thinking, wow, she's just this tall, stately, beautiful woman. But she's not just beautiful on the outside. She's just a sweetheart through and through. Whenever we would have conversations, I was always struck by, she always seemed very intentional about the care for her just the temple, just the body that she had, and that always struck me. And I've never even told her about this, but it inspired me to do a little better in taking care of myself. And so I've watched she and Chuck. I don't think that you all had started the business when I met you initially. And they started a business. She has a consulting business. And when in her bio, you know, sometimes people have bios, they have all these things in them bios, and they ain't doing all them things. Because I know sometimes I know the people, I know them really well. And I just sit there and I smile. They're not doing all them things. They are sprucing it up a little bit. But Christine, I've watched her build her business, her consulting business, quietly, just watching. And when her bio says that she is a sought-after coach, she really is. She flies around the country and truly does help organizations. She's just a brilliant mind, and so I'm just honored to know her. I really probably am not taking advantage of my relationship with her like I should be, but I'm really proud and just excited to be able to share her with my sisters today. And I think you're going to be blown away. She's a dynamic speaker. Christine, come on up.
Good morning. I'm going to walk away from the mic because I don't like to just stand in one space. But I am flat out excited to be here this morning. What you don't know is that I just got back to Pittsburgh this morning around 1 a.m. And I didn't go to bed until about 2:45. And when Reverend TALEETA asked me if I would do this today, one of the things I've always asked God to give me is discernment. And we're going to be talking about boundaries. Mari set me up beautifully. And you know that God is in the house today because the way our presentations are going to intersect. Now, I didn't know what Mari was going to be speaking on. I didn't see her presentation, but our presentations intersect. But when she asked me to do this today, I knew I was getting back really late. And but I didn't really hesitate because where I was in Mexico, Playa del Carmen, doing my first wellness retreat for women, and God gave me the task to do that in May. So I planned the retreat in May for October, and I was so concerned that I would hardly get no one there. And I said, I'm going to do it even if it's just me and my assistant. But I sold out. And so when he tells you to do something, you have to be obedient. And he told me when I was flying home this morning to change my presentation. And I was like, I already turned in my slide deck. And it was like, don't worry about the slide deck. And I'm good for going away from my slide deck, especially because I try to read the room and I want to give people what they need. And so I'm changing up a little bit because I was spoken to by God to start with this book this morning. And this book is The Giving Tree, and it's going to set us up. It's going to frame us. If you're familiar with this book, then maybe you'll see where I'm going. But if not, then stay with me and I'll take you along. I'm not going to show the pictures because the pictures aren't what's important. It's the words that are important. So The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. Once there was a tree, and she loved a little boy. And every day, the boy would come. And he would gather her leaves and make them into crowns and play king of the forest. He would climb up her trunk and swing from her branches. And he would eat her apples. And they would play hide and seek. And when he was tired, he would sleep in her shade. And the boy loved the tree very much. And the tree was very happy. But time went by. And the boy grew older. And the tree was often left alone. Then one day, the boy came to the tree, and the tree said, "Come, boy, come and climb up my trunk, and swing from my branches, and eat apples, and play in my shade, and be happy." But the boy said, "I am too big to climb and play. I want to buy things and have fun. I want some money. Can you give me some money?" "I'm sorry," said the tree, "but I have no money. I have only leaves and apples. Take my apples, boy, and sell them in the city. Then you will have money and you will be happy." And so the boy climbed up the tree and gathered her apples and carried them away. And the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away again for a long time, and the tree became sad. And then one day, the boy came back, and he shook the tree with joy. And the tree shook with joy. And she said, "Come, boy, climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and be happy." "I'm too busy to climb trees," said the boy. "I want a house to keep me warm," he said. "I want a wife. I want children. And so I need a house. Can you give me a house?" "I have no house," said the tree. "The forest is my house. But you can cut off my branches and build a house. Then you will be happy." And the boy cut off the branches, carried them away to go build him a house. And the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away again for a long time. And when he came back this time, the tree was so happy she could hardly speak. "Come, boy," she whispered, "come and play." But the boy said, "I am too old and sad to play. I want a boat that will take me far away from here. Can you give me a boat?" "Cut down my trunk and make a boat," said the tree. "Then you can sail away and be happy." And so the boy cut down her trunk and made a boat and sailed away. And the tree was happy. But not really. And after a long time, the boy came back again. "I am sorry, boy," said the tree, "but I have nothing left to give. My apples are gone. My teeth are too weak," said the boy, "for apples. My branches are gone, said the tree. You cannot swing on them. I am too old to swing on branches, said the boy. My trunk is gone, said the tree. You cannot climb. I am too tired to climb, said the boy. I am sorry, sighed the tree. I wish that I could give you something, but I have nothing left. I am just an old stump. I am sorry. I don't need very much now, said the boy. Just a quiet place to sit and rest. I am very tired. Well, said the tree, straightening herself up as much as she could. Well, will an old stump be good? I think it's good for sitting and resting. Come, boy, sit down, sit and rest. And the boy did. And the tree was happy. The end. This used to be it's still one of my favorite stories, but it used to be one of my favorite stories because I would be like, I'm like that tree, but I was happy about it. That's how I feel about my kids. Whatever they want, I'm going to give them. I'm going to give them. And I'd like you to think about this as our framing for boundaries, because we're going to come back to this. Can we do the first slide? So, Reverend TALEETA told you my formal bio, but this is my real bio. This is my real bio. This is about me. I am a wife, and if my and I don't know if this is going to be interactive. So if you click, it should come up. The next thing on there, yep. I'm a wife. I am blessed to be married to my best friend and my partner in business. I'm also a mother. I have 3 amazing daughters, and I like to tell people what's most amazing about my daughters is that they're all out of the house. So, and they're self-sustaining. So they are amazing for that reason alone, amongst other things, but that's the most important one. And I don't know how these things are coming up, but I'm also a BB. This picture here is 3 of those are my daughter's children, and 1 is like my adopted granddaughter. We were all on vacation this summer, and I am very proud to be a BB. I get to spend a lot of time with my grandchildren. I'm also a business owner, an entrepreneur, but I've learned recently that what's most important about being a CEO is not the CEO of my business. I've become the CEO of my life. And that's what boundaries has allowed me to do. And I'm an educator and also an author. So that's my real bio. So just so you know a little bit about me. We have some learning goals. Next slide. We have some learning goals today. And the first one, and I don't have all of my things here. Thought I was going to have my PowerPoint in front of me, but if you can click the next, we're going to reframe boundaries as acts of self-love. Mari mentioned that boundaries are not about being selfish. It's about loving yourself. Our next goal for today is, explore the 4 R's. And that's what my retreat was about. It was about reflection. So we're going to reflect, we're going to rewind, we're going to reset, and we're going to just kind of give you some tools that you'll be able to take away when you leave today. Next slide. And we're going to create a personal boundary statement. So when you leave today, because I believe sometimes we can get so much information, and when you get so much information, you leave the space and then you forget. You don't do anything with it because you become overwhelmed. So we're going to take you're going to leave with one thing, and I'm only going to ask you to do one thing when you leave the space today. Next slide, please. It's going to be interactive. When I have found when you stand up in front of people, it's heavy lifting, and I don't want to do all that lifting by myself. So I'm going to ask you to lift with me. So there's going to be some interaction, but in order to do that, I want to set us up for the ability to have brave conversations. And what I mean by brave conversations, bold, relevant, authentic, valuable, and educational conversations. And that means that I need for you to be fully present. I need you to listen with curiosity. I need you to remember this is the most important thing, that what's shared here should stay here, but what's learned here should leave here. And then I'd like you just to ask that you engage actively. And I sat in Mari's session, and you did an amazing job doing that. So I'm just going to ask that you keep that energy going. And because I'm not controlling my own, you're going to have to just hit click, 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 and they'll all just come up, and then we'll go to the next slide. Okay, boundaries defined. I'd like for you just to take a moment and turn and talk to someone near you. When you hear the word boundaries, what does that mean to you? What do you think of when you hear boundaries? So let's just take about a minute or two just to kind of discuss that. Okay, if we can plan to come back in 5, 4, 3, 2, and everybody should be back. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, taking that time to engage. Is there someone that would like to just share out, when you hear the word boundaries, what you think of, what comes to mind? Absolutely. Anybody else want to share? Yes, ma'am. We'll go here. We can go here and then here. See, you perfectly, I mean, so God is just showing, like, he's like, okay, he told me, I'm going to set you up. I only got 2 hours of sleep. He said, you don't need any sleep. You're going to be just fine. You're going to go in there, and I'm going to set everything up, and you just set me up for to come back to the giving tree, which is so true. There was no boundaries between the tree and the boy. And that's what I used to think. I used to think that was okay. Like, that's me. I remember hearing this story, and I was like, wow, like, I'm the tree. I give and I give and I give, and that's a good thing, but it's not. It doesn't teach, and I didn't realize that I wasn't modeling for my children how to set healthy boundaries for that protection for them and for me. And so in this book, where it said the tree was happy, but then it said, but not really. When we don't set boundaries, we deplete our joy. And there were times that I wasn't happy because I was giving too much. And you know the thing about giving is that if you keep giving, people will keep taking. They will keep taking. The tree gave everything, down to the point where did you notice the language? They called the tree she. And I did not notice that for a long time. I said, why the tree got to be she? Because those are the people that give and give and give and give. And I'd like for you to remember this. So today, I want you to imagine you have a cup. And all the things that Mari talked about self-care, you're putting into that cup. And you should keep putting into that cup until it's full. Now, the key is that that's your cup. You give once the cup starts overflowing. You don't give from the cup. You give when the cup starts overflowing. Because if you give from the cup's going to get empty. But if you overflow, your cup's going to always stay full. And that's where we get to that point where, in my house, we call it on the floor, when you just giving too much and now you're on the floor. And so you feel like you can't get up, and you can be on the floor standing up. You're on the floor, but you're standing up, but you're on the floor because you've given too much from your cup. And so from this day forward, if you can keep that metaphor in your mind that your cup is your cup only, and don't give from your cup, give from your overflow. But then that also puts something on you. That means you got to keep putting into your cup. So that's where all the things that I said, didn't I say? Our presentation was just connecting so perfectly. All the things that you need to do for self-care is putting into your cup. Next slide. Next slide. So I like to always, whenever I'm using language, the word boundaries, we all have our own idea of what that means, but I like to level set with the definition for the session that I'm doing, because words can mean multiple things to multiple people. So when we're talking about boundaries in this space, we're talking about the sacred space that you intentionally set apart for your peace, your faith, your joy, and your love. And that's what we're going to define boundaries as in this space. And so to help us think about boundaries, we're going to be thinking about it through 4 different lenses. Next slide, please. Rewind your pace. We're going to think about it through 4 R's. Rewind, reflect on your power, remix, and release. So these 4 R's. And some people passed out some papers that I'm going to have you write some things down. This is where the interaction is going to come into play. So we're going to start with rewind your pace. In a culture, and we're in a culture right now that is obsessed with speed. Everything is fast, every constant motion. Choosing to slow down really requires a radical act of self-love. And so it becomes intentionality. You have to intentionally slow down because everything is moving so fast. So rewinding your pace isn't about becoming lazy or procrastinating or being unproductive. Rewinding your pace is recognizing that your worth is not measured by your output. And I'm going to say that again. As an educator, I would tell my students, whenever you hear something multiple times, that's important. So remember that. Your worth isn't measured by your output, and your value doesn't depend on your velocity. So how fast you're getting something done. So your worth and your value are not tied up into the speed at which you live your life. And so what I'd like for you to remember is we're going to think on some things. That's the name of my session here. We will think on these things because all changes start up here. They start right up here in our mental life. What are we thinking about? Mari talked about, or maybe it wasn't Mari, maybe Sonia. It was Sonia that talked about, or maybe it was Mari. I might be getting it confused. Somebody today. Somebody talked about the rewiring and that we're wired to think negatively. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not tall enough. All of these things, I don't have enough money. All the negative things sometimes tend to lead how we think. But we got to rewire that. We got to rewire that so that we're putting those positive things in place. And so we're going to think on these things. We're going to think on gratitude over guilt. Gratitude over guilt, because resting and receiving is not selfish. It's sacred. Resting and receiving is not selfish. It's sacred. Rest over rush. We're going to think about rest over rush, because the pause is powerful. Taking that moment to pause, like when someone asks you to do something, pausing before answering, just taking that pause, pausing before deciding to do something that you know maybe you shouldn't be doing right now. Just taking that pause. In stillness, you reconnect with your intuition. So stillness is important. You reconnect with your intuition, and it gives you that opportunity to think about things more deeply. So remember, rest over rush. Self-love over self-criticism. We as women especially are always so critical of ourselves in small things. You know, my hair's not right. Somebody pays you a compliment. Oh, this old thing. You know, no, like we're so critical, but we want to start to remember that self-love should be over self-criticism. So we have an interactive prompt, and I don't know where, oh, here, up there, wow. All right, so where in your life do you need to slow down? And for time's sake, I'm not going to have you take time to journal and write. I'm going to have you kind of think about and process the question by talking to your neighbor. So where in your life do you need to slow down and pause? And we'll take about we'll do 3 minutes, well, 4 minutes. Each person, I like to do something so that there's equity of voice. And so first person in your group will talk, and we'll give them about 2 minutes, and then the second person should take 2 minutes so that you each have a chance to share. Does that sound fair? Okay, so where in your life do you need to slow down and pause? 4 minutes. Okay, if we can come back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. So this is where you get to create your tool. As I said, I was going to have you leave with some tools. We're going to create what we're going to call a time boundary phrase. And I gave you an example, like this is my time boundary phrase. I don't take calls after 7 p.m. so I can recharge. And so now you think about some type of time boundary for yourself that you're going, and it has to be something that you're going to do and that you're willing to do and willing to commit to doing. So think of a time boundary phrase, and you can borrow mine if you don't have one. Maybe it's not 7 o'clock, maybe it's 4 o'clock in the evening. Our middle daughter, she's so funny. You're going to get a kick out of this. She had a time boundary phrase before she had children. Her time boundary phrase that she instituted on her dad and myself was that we not to call her before 9 a.m. And we call that BK, before kids. Now she has kids, and she's calling me at 8 a.m., 7 a.m. So I flipped it back, and I said, oh, I have a time boundary. What happened to that before 9 o'clock? I got used to that. I think that works for my life now, so do not call me before 9 a.m. So you might have, whatever it might be. So we're going to take just a minute. And I like to always let people know I am a crock pot processor, meaning that it takes me time to process and think about things. And so maybe you don't have a phrase right now. That's why you have this to take with you. But if you don't have a phrase, that's okay. You can start it. You might just write, my time boundary phrase is, and you got to think about it. Unlike some people who are microwave processors, and they already looked at the page and had their time boundary phrases already written. But we're going to take a minute and just create your time boundary phrase now. All right, if we can come back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. I was going to do a share out, but for time purposes, I want to make sure that I get through all of the tools. And so we're gonna skip the share out, and I also want to make sure that I have time during for Q&A. So if we can go to the next slide. Pass that one. Okay, great. We're going to reflect on your power. So we rewind, and we talked about, time and rewinding our pace, slowing down. Now we're going to reflect on our power, because true power comes not from perfection. True power comes not from perfection, but from courage to be imperfect. And be imperfect and still feel worthy. Because sometimes we make mistakes and we beat ourselves up over it. Like, oh, I said the wrong word. I did the wrong thing. I didn't dress the way everybody else was dressed in the event. I didn't come prepared. No, that's okay. We got to get rid of that. And you show up how you show up. And you keep it moving. But the true power, it emerges not from having all the answers either. And I know myself, I used to think that I had to have all the answers. But I learned it's not about having all the answers. It's about asking the right questions. So, it doesn't grow from criticism, but from compassion. So I had to learn how to be more compassionate with myself. So I make a mistake, I stumble. It's about progress, not perfection, and it's okay. It's okay if and even when I was away on my retreat, I had to remind myself of that. I got out to the airport and I had to get off the plane because the engine on one of the engines was not working. So they got us off the plane. But the first thing I thought was, I'm gonna miss my connection. And then I was like, wait a minute. I don't want to be on that plane and something's wrong with the engine. Like forget the connection. And so I had to pause, and I had to be okay with that. And I had to know that I'm going to get there when I'm supposed to get there. And say it again. Yeah, it was out of my control anyway. And this is the funny thing. It's also learning how to trust yourselves. We think sometimes other people have the right answer when we are the ones who have the right answer. But we look at someone else. So they finally got us back on the plane. And, they're telling us, well, if you have a connection, talk to the person at the desk when you get off the plane. And they also told us to follow when we were going to arrive and when our next flight was leaving. So I'm following it and I'm thinking, I'm going to get there on time. Well, we land and then we sit before we taxi up to the thing. And then I see it changes. My flight is about to leave. The gate is closing. And I'm like, I didn't miss it. So I looked, I said, okay, I'll catch the next one. But I got off the plane and I said, and sometimes we think that God has these grandiose ways of speaking to us. God said, go to the gate. Go to your gate. Don't stop and ask the people about the plan B. Go to the gate. I got my bag and I hustled to the gate. And when I rolled up to that gate, the pilot and the gate attendant was standing there. And the gate attendant said, are you Christine? And the pilot said, you're my final person. We were waiting on you. And I got on my flight. And if I had stopped to ask, where's my gate or what, or did I miss the flight? If I had stopped to talk to anybody, they would have probably left because they don't wait. They don't wait for you. And when I rolled up there out of breath and everything, and they were still there, and they said, are you Christine? I was like, you waited on me. Now, my luggage didn't get there. But again, God gave me discernment. And because I was going to, and actually did, I messaged the people who were picking me up to say, my luggage didn't arrive. It's going to be arriving in an hour. Should I wait? What should I do? And then I said, wait a minute. Why am I asking them what should I do? I'm waiting on my luggage because I'm in Mexico. I don't speak the language. My luggage is not important to them. So even if they get a courier to bring it to me, it's probably not going to get there till I'm ready to go home. Now I'm not going to have any of my materials. I'm waiting on my luggage. And I waited on my luggage. And so I say that to say we need to trust ourselves because we know. And sometimes sometimes we have to, somebody might have more information than us. But most of the time, when we feel like that imposter syndrome or that thing of like, maybe, or we plan something and then somebody else comes and tells us something different, but we know in our spirit and we still don't do it because we think they know more. No, we have to trust ourselves. So we will think on these things. We will think on voice over silence because your truth deserves to be spoken. Your thoughts Your feelings and perspectives matter. Your voice adds something to this world that no one else can add. Your voice adds something to this world that no one else can add or offer. And then we have to have patience over pressure, because patience steadies us until the right moment to rise. Growth happens in seasons, not seconds. Again, growth happens in seasons, not seconds. Trust the timing of your own unfolding. Trust the timing of your own unfolding. So I'd like you to turn and talk to someone. What part of yourself is asking to be seen or spoken aloud? What part of yourself is asking to be seen or spoken aloud? And if you're that process, just say to your partner, like, I'm processing that. That's okay. But, just think about that. Okay, if we can come back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to skip the small group. And next slide. Oh, no, stop right there. Practice. So this is another tool that is so important. Practicing saying, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't work for me. And Reverend TALEETA, you talked about that. See, like, I didn't plan this. This is just all interconnecting. And it takes some time to say that, because we feel, like you said, you feel uncomfortable. You feel like you're supposed to. And everybody needs help. Everybody wants something, but you have to really exercise that discernment of, what are the things that I'm going to do, the things that bring me joy, the things that it's not. He's going to do. And it's practice. That's why it says practice. And sometimes that practice is standing and looking in the mirror. That doesn't work for me. Oh, I don't like the way my face looks when I say that. Okay, wait a minute. That doesn't work for me. You know what I mean? You got to throw a smile on the end. But you practice so you know how you're showing up. And so when it's time, you go through your head, okay, is this that doesn't work for me? Or is this that doesn't work for me? Figuring out who am I talking to? Who needs it to be maybe a little more forceful because they're not going to hear me? Whose feelings I don't want to hurt because so I better smile? But it's practicing that. And it's also putting on your oxygen mask. They tell you that on the plane. Because you can't help your children or anyone around you if you pass out. And that's what we almost do to ourselves. Pass out or end up in a hospital and be forced to say, instead of that doesn't work for me, we're like, that didn't work for me. So we gotta be proactive. Okay, so we're gonna go to the next slide. Okay. We will think on these things. This remix, so we're going to remix our lives. That's what the next thing is like. So we rewind our pace. We reflect on our power. Now we're going to remix our lives. This remix isn't about having it all figured out. When you leave this space, you've been given some information. You're not going to have it all figured out. And because our minds are wired a certain way, it calls for a paradigm shift, which takes time. And so you might fall right back into those same things, but it's the intentionality and how fast when you fall back in, you realize I fell in. Okay, what did I learn? What was that tool? That doesn't work for me? Okay. And there's nothing wrong with if you forgot to say that doesn't work for me. What was that you said you have to do? Back out. You got to back out and say, I forgot to say that doesn't work for me. That doesn't work for me. It's just being vulnerable and real and authentic and not worrying about what people are going to say. And so it's realizing you don't have it all figured out, giving yourself permission to change your mind, to try new things, to prioritize your joy, and to create a life that feels as good as it looks. That's what it's about, creating that life that feels as good as it looks. Because sometimes we're around here on autopilot and we look all put together. When I was on at the retreat this week, because it was 4 days at this amazing resort, and the women that showed up. When women come together and they really are honest and talk about how the things that are going on, you are like, what? You don't know what somebody's going through based on what they look like externally, and and you're shocked. But now we created this cohort where we're checking in on. There were people that wanted to exercise. All right, we got a little group that every day we're going to if you don't exercise, that's fine, but just type done if you did it, and if you didn't, say trying tomorrow. I'm gonna try, but now you're being accountable. And so it's like not realizing that people, you just don't know what somebody's going through. So we got to give grace and we got to be understanding. And most importantly, giving that grace to ourselves and realizing that it's more about how we feel than what it looks like. So we will think on these things. Self over selflessness. 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 Self over selflessness. Because filling your own cup first blesses everyone more. When you take care of yourself, you show up as the best version of yourself for others. Receiving over relentless giving. Time to sometimes turn the tables and allow someone to give back to you. Allow someone to help you. And I thought about that this morning. The gentleman who was helping with the cars in the parking lot, after I got inside the building, he said, "Can I help you with that?" And my normal MO, "No, I got it." I had a suitcase, my bag, my purse, a box, and he don't have nothing in his hands. And I was like, "No, I got it. I just only have my suitcase." It was like, "No." And after I got in, I was like, "That was stupid." But I remembered that was a moment, an opportunity to allow someone to help me, especially when I just went to bed at 2:45. I should have said, "Absolutely, can you take all of this?" He would have said yes, because he was like, "Oh, okay." He's probably looking at me like, "Yeah, why? I'm not going to push," but she said, "I asked, I offered." Because saying yes to yourself sometimes means saying no to others. So when we're receiving over relentless giving, saying yes to ourselves is really important. You are not responsible for everyone's happiness. You're not. You're only responsible for your own. You're not responsible for everyone's happiness, but you are responsible for your own. And this one, listen to this, because this is so important. Joy over just enough. Sometimes we're always willing to just have just enough. But why? Because just enough is the song of struggle. Just enough is the song of struggle, but joy is the song of freedom. And that's the song we want to have all the time in our lives, as much as we can. You deserve more than just survival. You deserve to thrive, to flourish, and to experience the fullness of life. Collaboration over competition. Because sisterhood is strength. It is strength in sisterhood. There is room for all of us to shine. And I don't know where we got the idea that if one person is shining, it's taking away from our ability to shine. Another woman's success doesn't diminish your own. It actually just lets you know the possibilities. Like, if she did it, okay, she did it, I can do that too. And matter of fact, because she did it, I can ask her to help me do it. Not feel like, "Oh, I don't want to know. I don't know how to do that. I don't want anybody to know what my vulnerabilities are or what I can't do." That is struggle thinking. And so the prompt that I'd like for you to answer now is, or turn and talk with your neighbor, is, what's something you want to say yes to? And what will you have to say no to in order to be able to say yes? So what's something you want to say yes to, but you're going to have to say no to in order to be able to say yes to something else? Because it's like when you create a vacuum. Sometimes you have to create a vacuum so that you can add something new. I got into this thing where before I'll buy any new clothes, because sometimes you just can have too much of stuff, I clean out. So I won't buy any shoes because then I'll go in my closet and I'll be like, "Why do I don't need another pair of shoes. I haven't worn these shoes." So creating that vacuum. Okay, if we can come back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. In your little packet, you can do this at your at your leisure. I created a template for you to be able to create a joy boundary. And the joy boundary is I say no to whatever you would need to say no to, so I can say yes to whatever you would need to say yes to. And my example is I say no to relationships that drain me so that I can say yes to friendships that bring me joy. And so you're happy. I gave these examples for my crockpot thinkers. You can borrow that, and then the next month you might create a different joy boundary, because you don't have to just have one. You can have as many as will bring you joy. We're going to keep moving because I want to make sure that we get to the final thing of creating our final boundary. Now we're going to talk about releasing what you no longer need. I don't know, that triggered some people. That was a little triggering. Okay, so in this context, releasing what you no longer need is not giving up, it's making space. Every ending creates the opportunity for a new beginning. Every letting go creates room for something new. What you release today is a gift to your future self, creating space for growth, joy, and possibility. And if you have on your little paper, this is just something that just came to mind. There's this website called futureme.com. Futureme.com. And I did this a year ago, September. I went to Future Me and I wrote a letter to myself, my future self, and had it set to send to me in a year. And I got it in September. And it was so funny, I forgot I did it. And I got the email, because they'll send you the email. You can set 6 months. You can set up the time that you want. And I got the email, and I was like, I'm reading it. I was like, oh, this sounds like me. Who wrote this? And then the first thing I thought, I was like, did Chuck write this to me? This is so. And then I get to the end, and it said, from me. And I was like, oh my gosh. I wrote this letter to me a year ago, and it was something so inspiring about reading the words that I wrote to myself a year ago. So I encourage everybody to go to Future Me and write yourself a letter and set it up to send it to yourself. You'll probably forget you wrote it, and then when it comes, it'll be this pleasant surprise, and you'll be able to see how you were thinking about yourself a year ago. Future, Future, futureme.com. And so as we're coming to an end, we're going to think on these things as you think about releasing. Peace over pressure. So we're going to release the pressure because you are not required to carry it all. The pressure to be everything to everyone is a burden. And it's a burden that was not meant to be yours. Set it down and breathe. Wholeness over worry. We're going to release worry because worry whispers that something is missing. But wholeness knows that you have everything you need within you right now, in this moment. Lightness over load. We're going to release the load. Because what you lay down today makes space for what you will lift tomorrow. Every heavy thing you release creates room for something beautiful to enter into your life. And so this guided release visualization is, I want you to think about what no longer serves you. Breathe it in. Thank it for its lessons, because there's lesson in worry and there's lessons in all of those things. Thank it for whatever those personal lessons for you were. Thank it for its lessons. And release it so that your soul can rise. And not just rise, rise in lightness. Doubt. These were just some examples, but if there's some things that you need to release, yes, write them down, because this is for you to personalize it. And so this is your final turn and talk, but I'd like you to complete the prompt first. I release blank to make room for blank. My boundary is blank so that you fill in the blank. Might be, I release doubt to make room for confidence. Your boundary might be no negative self-talk, or negative people talking to you. I believe that I am standing between us and lunch. So, I want to wrap us up with, is there anyone, because I didn't make time to share through the other ones, but is there anyone that would like to share their final boundary phrase?
Yeah, I'm allowed. No, I'm not. I release doubt to make room for confidence. That really resonated. Whoever just said that, thank you. My boundary is giving myself the time and the grace so that I can learn the tools I need to be a confident and successful gospel jazz vocalist.
Mine is making room for my feelings, and that my feelings really do matter, and how I spend my day really does matter. I should be a factor in that.
In case you don't all know, that's my mother-in-law. That's like my mom, and who I love very much, always supporting me. Is there anyone else that would like to share? All right. Where are we on? With questions? Yes.
If you have your questions, have them ready to give to Helen.
Dr. Christine, someone said, no, she did answered all my questions. Oh, okay. Raynell,
Right now, you want to come up so that, yeah.
You want the, how about I bring you the mic?
Any more questions? Pass them down.
It's not a question, but I just wanted to share that we were just talking about boundaries, and I went to lunch with some of the ladies that I worked with Mellon at Mellon with about a month ago, and one of the ladies that I hired had retired in January. She's single, doesn't have any children. I said, "Oh, how's your family feel about that?" She said, "They don't know. I didn't tell them." Because I'm not going to have them dictate how I spend my days. So if they don't know I'm retired, they can't plan my days for me. And I can do what I want to do.
Wow.
And I thought, that's brilliant. If you can pull it off, brilliant.
Now this is.
That's right. That's right. Because someone said right now, because when people find out you're retired, they think that they've automatically got someone, they're going to try to fill in your time. All right. We have 3 questions for Dr. Christine. How to know when your boundaries are becoming walls? How to know, and this is a second part, I think, to this, how to know if you are giving yourself grace or just being comfortable.
So my comment to that would be walls for whom? Because sometimes you need a wall. And the whole point of boundaries are to make sure that you're creating a space that allows peace and joy and comfort for you, but it's also supposed to be on the other side. But some people haven't grown like you've grown, and so they're gonna maybe feel like it is a wall, and then that's what sometimes I think creates this space where people end up not honoring their boundaries because someone has said something that that they're questioning what you're doing because it's not serving them. And so an easy check for me, and I use this all the time in relationships, is this a win-win? So are we both benefiting? If it's a win-win, we're good. Is it a lose-win, which means I'm losing and they're winning? Not good. Is it a win-lose? So that might be a check. Like if I'm winning, but the other person is or the situation is always losing, and I can't think of a way to make it win-win, I might need to rethink that boundary, because win-lose or lose-win is not good for either in either situation. And is it a lose-lose? We're both losing. Like right now in our country is lose-lose. Everybody's losing. So, you know, that's a quick check that I use to help me understand if I'm on the right track with my boundaries. And what was the second? There was a second one.
And it was, the second part to that was how to know if you are giving yourself grace or just being comfortable.
Well, sometimes grace is being comfortable. And so, you know, I think that's sort of like a personal question, because sometimes we need comfort. Sometimes we're carrying a lot and we need to be comfortable. So we got to look at the situation. And I think for most of us, like I know when I'm just wasting time. I know when I'm just scrolling, or I'm just, you know, or I'm looking for excuse. We know that. We sort of have those self things and we just ignore it. And I think that it's really listening to yourself to understand what is it that I need in this moment. Because we've been conditioned so much to give to others and to not think about ourselves. You know, like I work really hard. I'm a hard worker. And when I don't do something, first thing I go is like, oh, you know what? I spent too much time today not really doing anything. And then I end up overcompensating. But I've had to learn to say, if I take a day, it's okay, because in a 24-hour day, I've worked 4 days sometimes. So if I take one day, that's okay.
How do you protect boundaries with parents and elders without being disrespectful, but yet firm?
That's an excellent question. And I think that, again, this is coming from someone who did not have that opportunity to grow into who I am when my parents were living. My mom crossed boundaries all the time, and I did not have the language to speak to her about that. So even this sentence, practicing in the mirror, that's probably where you'll smile and say, that just doesn't work for me. And it's okay, because you're an adult, and your parents should see you as an adult. And it's having the conversations. So sitting down and having the conversations, level setting the expectations, and you can do that in a respectful way. Saying no is not disrespectful. Yeah. Saying no with a smile, saying no, how about, and giving an alternative. But it's finding the courage to do that. Yeah. Because the way I was raised is that your parents, you have respect for them. But I've learned through therapy, what if my parent doesn't have respect for me? Now, what happens there? If they're not respecting you as an adult, then maybe you might say, I think we should talk to someone together. Because everybody grows and gets to certain places at different times. So your parent may not have reached the space of being able to understand where you are. So you might need some help, because maybe they can't hear it from you. And think about your kids. If you have kids and you're telling them something, and you're telling them and you're telling them and you're telling them, and then they come home and they say, oh, my teacher said da 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 da, and you've been telling them this for a year, but they couldn't hear it from you. It could be the same way with a parent. They might not be able to hear it from you, but you might need another tool or some support. And in this, just keep giving yourself grace and giving your parent grace also.
Dr. Christine, do you mind if I tell a story? Because it directly correlates with this question. You all know my mom. And I'll leave it there. That'll be a period. And so my mother would call me in the middle of the day, like I don't have a job. And so, and she would expect for me to talk like I wasn't, like I didn't have a job. And I would say to her, Mom, I said, and I would talk to her for a few minutes, Sister Carol, and then I would say to her, well, Mommy, I gotta go. Well, what are you doing? Like she's almost like, well, what would you be doing in the middle of the day? And Mom, I'm working. I'm working. And I would be firm, Dr. Christine, and I would say, and it took me a while to get to this, because at first I would, I'd let her put me in a bind, and I'd let her get me all upset, because then I would have to get off. I'm upset, she's upset. But I decided I'm just going to tell her in a loving way, and I would say, Mom, I've got to go. And I could tell she didn't like it, Sister Bernice. But I practiced this is not working I can't do this right now. Mm-hmm. And finally, she would get off, and I could tell she was upset. But just 2 or 3 weeks ago, she said to me, I said, she did it. I said, I'm getting ready to get off, Mom. And she said, oh, okay. And I said, okay. And she said, I'm getting better. She said, you can tell. She said, I've got to the place where I've accepted you. I know you got to go. You've got to get to work. So I'm doing better, right? And I said, yes, you are.
Yeah.
But I practiced.
practice.
I did. I practiced what I was going to say to her. You know, like we do. I don't care how old I get. I'm almost 6, and I'm still practicing how to tell my mother no. But they're our mother, you know.
And that can even happen with your children. Like I said, I have 3 adult children, and when they call, I respond like they're kids.
Yes.
Like, oh, I got to answer. I'm sorry, I got to answer. And then they said to me, why are you answering if you're busy? And I was like, well, yeah, why am I answering
Why
if
am
I'm
I
busy?
answering when I'm busy?
I shouldn't be. But then this is the funny thing. I didn't. I stopped answering. Why didn't you answer? So
Right.
it's the practice,
Right.
because eventually it's reshaping the behavior.
Yes.
That's what it is. It's reshaping the behavior. And if you don't reshape it, it's always going to be the same.
And the last question, they just want to simply know, are you a life coach?
Yes.
I knew the answer to that. I just wasn't going to answer that. Yeah. Yes. Are you like, I'm thinking there's a follow-up to that, or like, that you can talk to her
Yes.
after this
so
session.
yes, I figured that. I think I have my information up on this next slide.
Okay.
Yep, there it is.
All right. Can we thank Dr. Christine?
Thank you.
Reverend Vivian, if you'll come up, we are going to. We're going to close out these sessions with our prayer for restoration. And then we're going to go down.